Well, hello. This is Takeaway Talk. Welcome. I'm Michelle Blitzos.
And I'm Marina, but we do have one of us missing today. So a big shout out to Kathy, who's not feeling well. And we really hope you get better, Kathy. It's strange not having the third person here, but hey, we can do it.
That's right. It means that you and I can talk more.
Exactly. Now,
We'll make up for it, won't we? So,
we yesterday, we were meant to have our meeting yesterday, but
yes,
it didn't
we are a
happen.
day late. I do apologize for those of you who've been anxiously waiting on YouTube to see when our next episode comes out. We didn't
Well,
make
you know
it.
what, Michelle? I took up your challenge and I didn't wear any makeup yesterday. And I came to the office and we actually had a lot of clients that popped in to do some jobs with us, and with a lot of recording and all sorts of things. And every single person, or the four people that came in at different times of the day, they all said, "Oh, are you okay? You look a bit tired."
Oh,
So,
no.
yeah, but I deliberately, and I told them that you challenged me to go to work without any
Our
makeup.
makeup. And you
So I did
did
it.
it. I'll bet
I
you
did
looked
it.
just as beautiful as ever, didn't you? Come
Oh,
on. Did you take a
you know
photo
what?
to show us?
I have got a photo, but it wasn't from yesterday, because yesterday I really did look tired. Because the reason why I wear eye makeup is because my eyes are small. So I have a photo of me with no makeup on. I'm going to bring it up to the camera.
Oh, aren't you beautiful? Look at that.
Uh,
See?
that's
Just as
me with no
beautiful as
makeup on.
ever. Just as beautiful as ever.
Oh,
I can't see the difference personally. The
and
same to me.
yeah, but I suppose it's difficult when you've got clients coming in and you've got to look professional and you need to present well, especially when you're telling them they need to look a certain way on the camera because we're filming them. So I have to kind of, put the effort in there.
There
But
you go.
today's topic, we're going to be
Yes,
talking about our
today. Well,
yeah.
we're excited, of course, because we're heading into Mother's Day weekend, which is always an exciting time of year when we get to, our mums are special every day, aren't they? And every day of the year they're special. But once a year, we get to really help them know that we think they're special. Yeah. So we thought we'd do a whole
Yeah.
episode dedicated to our mums, but also to us who are mums, just in case the weekend doesn't
Yes.
quite go off as planned. We can talk about how great we are nonetheless. So,
Yeah.
Marina, why don't you tell me a little bit about your mum?
Well, I'm going to bring up a photo of my mum, and my mum's always got her hands in everything. She's always been a stay-at-home mum. I've never actually been one of those kids where my mum's worked for a living. Of course, that was the old school generation. Mum's 81. She'll be turning 82 in June, actually. So next month, she'll be turning 82. And so I'm going to show you a picture of my mum. Bring it up to the camera. Sorry about the light.
Oh,
That you
lovely.
can see there.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so
Beautiful.
mum's in the veggie patch. And she's always got her hands into everything. Since this photo, mum's actually stopped dyeing her hair and she's gone shorter, and so she's quite silver now. And I said, "Why'd you stop dyeing your hair, mum?" And she said, "Oh, I'm just sick of it, the time and the effort. It's easy." And she said, "I'm 80 something, who cares?" And I'm like, "Okay, mum." But my mum, if there's something I can say about my mum, she came over as an immigrant, a Croatian lady, and came over in 1969. And she had 3 months left to go. So I was conceived over in Croatia, and she gave birth to me at Wollongong Hospital. So,
Wow.
so she came over, left her family and friends, and had to learn English and, just sort of live life. And she grew her own veggies, and we had our own cows and chickens and rabbits, which I thought were pets at the time, but they all disappeared eventually. So I grew up on almost like a home-based farm. And we had the biggest veggie patch in the garden. And mum, of course, still does her veggies. But the thing about mum is everything she did with love. Nothing was too hard for her. And I blame mum for my love of cake, because one thing,
Mm.
if you ever go
I
to
blame my mum
Croatia,
for everything, but we'll get to that later. So
yeah.
good.
So, Mum, we were brought up with coffee and cake, or cake and coffee. Everything she cooked was homemade. It was beautiful. And one of my fondest memories of Mum, and usually growing up as girls, being teenagers, teenage girls can be quite difficult with their parents. And I've got boys, so I didn't experience the teenage girl thing. But because Mum had a quite a rough upbringing with dad, it wasn't the easiest life. I wasn't one of those difficult teenagers. I really appreciated Mum because she went through a lot. I'm not going to go into detail regarding all that, but it wasn't easy for her. But one thing I remember is, as a teenager, whenever my girlfriends came over, I actually had an unusual bedroom. It was like a barn door, but the top part you could see through. And Dad put it on to, like, my bedroom was like an extension of the house. And whenever girlfriends would come over, there would always be a knock at the door. Mum knew that we wanted our privacy, but she'd always have a tray of goodies. There was either a plate of homemade cookies, homemade cake, or delicious scones, and there was always a pot of fresh tea. And I'd open the door and she'd place it on the blanket box at the end of my bed, and my girlfriends would they would love it. And they loved coming over to visit because Mum was that type of woman, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And she showed love through food. She wasn't the type of mum. I didn't grow up knowing how to be a lady, how to do makeup. I didn't know any of that. I learned everything from Dolly magazine. So Mum was one
I
of those mums
remember
who
Dolly.
never wore makeup. Yeah, she never wore makeup. She was just a general mum, you know, and that stuff didn't matter. Her way to show love was just being there for us and cooking for us, mending things for us. And she was just awesome. And she's still around, and I caught up with her today very briefly, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for my mum. She's my sunshine. She really is.
That's lovely.
Yeah. What about you, Michelle? What's your mum like?
Well, my mum, I'm going to see if this works because you did it this way, and normally I'd share my screen, but because I've got the backdrop on,
Oh, yes.
you can sort of see a little bit there of my mum with
I
my
can see
kids.
her. Yes.
So you can probably see from that my mum's little. You see
She
that?
is
She's quite
little.
little. She's quite short.
Is she
So
like me?
she's like you. Yes, yes. So you'd get along quite well. You'd probably be about the same height. So
Oh,
quite little. My mum is amazing. So my mum is 72 and she still works full time. She is a practice manager at a law firm and has been working for law
wow.
firms for many years and can't seem to give it away, though I'm ever hopeful that this will be the year, and this will be the year that she will retire. Not because I think that her life is over, but because I think that she has worked hard her whole life and I want her to be able to enjoy, because I was hoping she'd be able to travel, but I'm guessing that's going to be a bit trickier now. So
Yes.
but look, my mum is one of the most amazing women that I think I've ever come across in my entire life. So she had two girls, me and my sister. My sister's a couple of years younger than me. And my sister was quite ill when she was little, and so she was in and out of hospital. And my mum had to do the best that she could. And then my dad also got quite sick, and he died of Hodgkin's lymphoma in the early 70s, mid 70s. Actually. And so my mum was left with two young children under the age of 6 to manage all on her own. And at the time that my dad died, we lived in Western Australia, actually. And she drove across the Nullarbor Plain with two kids under 6 and the cat that had kittens, because I
And the
couldn't
cat.
leave the cat behind in Perth. So we had to take the
Wow.
cat with us. So this was sort of, you know, my mum's early years of, and I mean, her whole life is quite amazing. And, you know, she's always worked, and she worked at the council, and she trudged through the snow, grew up in Katoomba in the Blue Mountains, and, you know, has many stories to tell, but has worked hard all of her life. And just that story of, you know, driving across the Nullarbor Plain in a station wagon with two kids that young and cats was just,
With kittens.
I don't remember it, but she did it. The cat disappeared actually when we got here and settled back on this side. And I've never quite known what happened to that cat, but it made it all the way across in the car, but didn't quite make it after that. So we grew up in the Blue Mountains. I grew up in the Blue Mountains, and Mum had to work, of course, because she was a single mum. And so we were very close to some family friends. And so I would go to their house. We lived at Lawson. So distance, I don't know, people look it up on a Google map or something, but we lived at Lawson. I went to school at Blaxland and Mum worked at St Mary's. And so that's actually quite some distances that we travelled every day back and forth.
Yes.
And that's just what we had to do to survive. And later on, we did actually move to Blaxland, and I was able to complete my schooling there and later on in Penrith. And, you know, my mum just did an amazing job raising these two girls on her own. And I have such an amazing appreciation for her. The story gets better because there's actually a whole age story that I have that maybe one day I'll tell you. But anyway, let's just say that the transition from WA to New South Wales meant that I got through school a little bit earlier. So I finished my
Okay.
HSC at the age of 16 and went to Bible college.
Oh, wow.
Promised my mum I would go on and do nursing, and that, but I wanted to go to Bible college first. So I got her to agree to let me do that. So I go to Bible college and I met this wonderful man who was 10 years older than me. And we came home just after, like 2 weeks after I turned 18, and he asked if he could marry me. And I think about that now
Are you
because I have a
serious?
19-year-old daughter, and my poor mum had to sort of say, okay, I guess. I mean, she sort of didn't know quite what to do with all of that, but that was 30 years ago. So we've been happily married for 30 years. But now that my daughter is 19, I look back on my mother who had to let go of her daughter at the age of 18 and get married is just amazing. And my internet connection's
Wow.
unstable, so I hope this recording works okay. But the, you know, her whole life, just that she let us go. She gave us such freedom to make our own decisions about the choices that we wanted to make in life. And, you know, whether that was because of her upbringing, and her whole upbringing is just amazing. And her dad was a World War II veteran, 15 years difference between her and her next sister because she was sort of one of those baby boomers.
Yes.
And just that whole, you know, she was looked after all of her life and still is by her older brothers and sisters. But just the amazing life that she had, that she did it on her own. You know, I don't think I could have done what she did. And absolutely love my mum. She's still very, very present in our lives. We see her most of the time. I'm going to see her this weekend. I haven't seen her for 7 weeks
Oh,
since my birthday in early March. So really looking forward to
wow.
seeing mum. I could tell you the bad stories, but I think I'll stick with the good ones. The bad ones where
Yeah.
I celebrated my birthday on the wrong day for years and years and years. But she finally got it right. Now we actually celebrate my birthday on the day I was born. So for years
Oh,
and
that's
years,
funny.
celebrated on the wrong date. But anyway, we got it right eventually. So I think
So,
one of the
so
lessons
Michelle,
is mums aren't perfect, right? And we're not perfect. Mum
oh,
isn't
that's right.
perfect. But you look back and you recognise just how great they were and what they contributed to our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you say, what do you think your mum has put into your life? When I look at you, the story you've just told me about your mum, I would say she's put an incredible work ethic
Mm.
into you because you've done some incredible things, you know, in your career. And that comes from your mum.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
see it.
Yeah, and I mean, I am just like my mum. You know, I work. Actually think my mum still works harder than I do, but you know that doing more than one job at a time. You know, raising the family, doing all those sorts of things. I think, you know, she and I will have discussions about where has all the common sense in the world gone, and we will debate, and we can actually talk about work still. Because she was very excited when I went to work with surveyors because she does conveyancing. She understood that world. So that was really exciting.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And so now we sort of work in the same kind of world. And so that was pretty cool. But yeah, definitely my work ethic. And also a real giving and service heart. Like for my mum, nothing is too hard. She will do anything for
Hmm.
anybody. And she's always giving over and above and beyond what I think she should be doing of herself. The whole
Sounds like my mum.
still working at 72 is because she can't bear to leave them on their own without her. And I'm like,
Oh,
their problem,
but
mum,
you
not
know what,
yours. Oh,
Michelle, it's probably what's giving her the energy to keep going. Sometimes some people don't want to work, and some people, that's their drive, that's
I
their
know.
passion.
Well,
And
that's right.
that's,
And look, I think I'd be the same. You know,
yeah,
whenever I've taken a break or taken a holiday, I don't know what to do with myself after a week. I just got to keep
Yeah.
going. And certainly I've got that from my mother. Everything I've also got, I've got like lots of little, all the physical things that are wrong with me, they all come from my mother too. I totally blame her.
Oh,
All the things that are wrong with
oh
me
no.
and all the things that are right with me all come from
Well, one of the things I think I've taken from my mum is her sense of humor. Mum's quite funny. She's always laughing and she's always smiling. And I think I get that from mum. And number two, resilience, because she's quite a resilient woman. My dad was quite, nothing against my dad, no animosity, everything's forgiven, everything's moved on. But dad had alcoholic problems and he was quite violent. So I grew up in a violent household, and mum stayed with him for us because that was what you did.
Yeah.
And but she's had a lot of things that have taken place in her life, and she's just, you know, just gotten on with it, prayed. She's the woman, I suppose, that has instilled a faith that I have in God personally, and it's her resilience. And I think I take that from mum. So I'm not a giver upper. I will keep going at things
Isn't
until
your mum
the door
also
closes.
quite creative? Isn't she into art
Yes.
things like you? So you've got your creativity from her also, haven't
Yeah, mum's creative with her cooking, and she's creative with embroidery. She used to be that type of creative, not so much artistic and photography, because it was different back then.
you?
But she loves color like I do. I like your background today because it's very colorful. Yeah, so I think when it comes to my mum, I'm grateful that I've taken on those attributes and giving. I'm giving like my mum. She's a giver as well. And we've just talked about our mums, but can I ask you a few questions regarding what's it like for you with your kids? Like how would you say Mother's Day is? Do you love being a mum? Do you have moments where you're like, oh,
I
I'm over it?
do. I absolutely love being a mum. I'm not one of those at home domestic type mums, I have to say. I have tried to fit that mold of what's expected of a mother, but I'm
Yeah.
too much like my own mother, and that didn't quite work. But I think for me, I was married quite young, and we wanted to start a family along with our other friends who were getting married at the same time, but we weren't able to have children. And so we
Yeah.
didn't actually end up having kids for about 10 years. So I was 30 before I had, I'd already been married for 12 years by the time I had my daughter. And for me, she was quite a miracle. So I'd been told I'd have to do IVF in order to fall
Okay.
pregnant. And I didn't feel like that was the right thing for me at the time, and we really couldn't afford it anyway. Then, back nearly 20 years ago, and so I thought, well, okay, I'll never have kids, and that's okay. I was pretty involved in my church, and we had a youth ministry and so on. So I had a lot of kids around me, and I just accepted that I would never have my own. So to actually fall pregnant was to me quite a miracle, and
Wow.
I think that my daughter is truly a miracle. I think that her whole birth was just amazing. Like, it was the easiest birth. It was like 4 hours and it was done, 5 hours or something. I went home one night and had ice cream, went into labour, waited a few hours, went to the hospital, and out she popped. And I'm like, what
Oh
is it
wow.
you want about giving birth? I don't understand it. I think it's the easiest thing in the world. Then I had my son, and it wasn't quite that easy, but so then after I had my daughter, I got pregnant again, but I didn't know it. And I actually had an ectopic pregnancy,
Okay.
and collapsed in my bathroom one day and found out that actually I nearly died from blood loss. And so
Oh.
they had to cut out one of my fallopian tubes. And so
Mhm.
again, I thought, well, that's okay. I've got one child. That'll be fine. I'm happy just to have one child. So again, quite the miracle that I got pregnant and had my son. And so I have a daughter and a son who are now 19 and 16. And I think that I have enjoyed absolutely every stage of their life and every stage of their development, probably because of the miracle that I think they both are, and the blessing that they have just brought to our lives. And, each stage has been amazing, from when they were little babies that I remember. And, now my son, of course, is, nearly 6 foot, much taller than me. And he tried to sit in my lap the other day, and way too big, you know. But I remember when I could hold them like this, and they used to come into bed and cuddle with me, and, you know, all those sorts of things. My daughter's a little bit shorter than me, so I can still hug her and cuddle her. But, you know, just an interesting way to watch them grow. And now they're becoming adults and they're dating themselves, and I can't complain because I was married by their age, so I can't really go on about that, can I? No leg to stand on at all here. And I just think that they are like me. You know, they both have characteristics that I have, which means they're like my mum, which I think is fabulous.
Yeah.
And it's just a pleasure to watch them grow. What about you?
I know.
Boys?
Well, I had my first at 22. I was married at 20, and my first at 22. I think about it, I was quite young, and it is good for your body having babies younger. And all I can say is the experience. I remember when I went into labour, we had friends over. We were playing a card game, and it was after midnight, and I knew something was happening. I started to get contractions, and I'm crawling around on my hands and knees and, you know, doing the breathing techniques. And my husband at the time didn't have his license because he worked in Sydney, so he was always catching a train, so he didn't need to have his license. We had to get a friend to take me to the hospital. I was gassed up so much because I hadn't slept all day and all night. I was gassed up so much, and I'd be falling asleep in between the birth, and I'd wake up and I go, have I had it yet? Have I had it yet? Because I was so off my face on the gas. And then I realised I hadn't had it because, you know, they had to give me an epidural, and he was more in the back. So with my first pregnancy, you couldn't even tell I was pregnant. I was bodyboarding up until about 7 months pregnant. You couldn't even tell.
Wow.
It was the 8th month that I kind of popped out. And because they'd given me an epidural and they didn't check my height and weight chart, I'm smaller than the average person. And the drug, I was off my face for 3 days after giving birth because of the gas and the epidural. So anyway, when I got to hold my baby the next day, I've never experienced anything. I've never experienced anything like that. The love you have for your partner and your friends and everything else is so different. The love you have for your child. I was holding my newborn son, Danny, my firstborn, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, I've never experienced that type of love. It is not earned. It's a free love that just, you can't explain it. They've done nothing to earn your love, but you just love that baby unconditionally, so wholeheartedly. And it was the most beautiful, I think it was like a personal revelation and a personal understanding that I never realized I could love so much, ever.
And it never goes away, does it? I mean,
no,
my heart breaks for those parents who lose their children, you know, before them. And I just can't imagine such a thing. You know, the thought of losing one of my children is horrific for me. And so my heart goes out to anybody who's watching this who has lost a child. It just would be, you know,
devastating.
Devastating.
It would. And, you know, it was an amazing experience, but I waited another 5 years before I had my second one, not because I couldn't, but because I was a little bit like
getting
you.
over the drugs. No, sorry.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like you. I'm not a mumsy mum. And I admire the women. Like, I was a stay-at-home mum pretty much for 10 years of my life, but in between that I went back to work, casual work, because I needed to be around people my own age. I needed to do things, and it was in my makeup. I found it hard to just stay at home all the time. So straight after giving birth to Danny, I think the next day after I came home from hospital, I put him in one of those things and went bushwalking in Mount Kira, because I wanted to get out. But I actually, with Danny, because I think it was the drugs or the hormones, I ended up going through a bit of that, what do you call it, postnatal depression.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop crying for weeks.
Wow.
And I realized it was a hormonal thing. With Joel, completely different. And they're now adult boys. So my youngest will be 24 this year and my eldest is going to be 29 this year. And with Joel, had a completely different birth. I actually read a book on supernatural childbirth and I believed it. And I claimed everything in it and read it, and, Power of the Mind, that kind of thing. And I trusted. And would you believe it? He was more out. He was larger than my first. And with my first, I, had to get stitches. With my second, I was the smallest woman that went into that hospital, like in height and stature. And I was the only woman that was not screaming. I
Wow.
was breathing through it. My sister
Yeah, yeah.
came in with me. I was sucking on ice and I was looking at gossip magazines. I was distracting myself, and the labour pain was no more than a period cramp, if
Yeah,
we're being
yeah.
honest.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
That's how
gave
it was
birth to
with my
him.
first. What's
Yeah,
amazing to me is that whenever we talk about mums and our motherhood experiences, we always talk about the birth.
I know.
Like,
And I gave
I just
birth to
think
him like
that's,
a beanbag.
and I mean, my mother talks about my birth and how she nearly died giving birth to me, and I nearly died.
Oh,
And then my dad went after the doctor with a shotgun, and, all that sort of stuff. It's quite an amazing story, my birth. But we always, as mothers, go back to the birth, which was
yes.
a bit like the wedding day. Like we think about our marriages and
Yeah.
we think about our wedding day, which was kind of one day out of, for me, 30 years that I didn't actually
Yeah.
enjoy, but because it wasn't me, I was trying to please everybody else. But that's another topic that we'll talk about some other time. But when it comes to our children, when we talk about our children, we immediately go to the birth story because it's so memorable in our lives. It's something that we will never forget, that feeling of, holding your child, etc. But every day since has been just as fabulous. I mean, even the other week we were sitting at the table and I'm asking the kids, how was your day? And they're fine. I mean, they're not fighting. My kids actually get along really, really well. They both still live at home and they are actually the best of friends, which I just think is wonderful. And they're both fabulous kids and are both going to have amazing careers and futures ahead of them. But and I just sit at the table, my husband and I will just sit at the table, we'll just listen to them talk to each other and fight back and forward and, talk. And I just love those moments. I love those moments when they're just talking and yabbering and not making any sense and just enjoying life. And I, as I said, I do truly try to appreciate every single moment with them. And I think
It
every
is
single
precious.
moment is different and precious.
Yes.
And I try not to fight with them too much. I try not to be too tough on them, give them their freedom. One of the other things is, of course, I still love their dad. And I think that's a very important part of what it is to raise, good, solid kids. So, I enjoy Mother's
Yeah.
Day not because I feel like it's a more special day than any other, because I actually feel quite loved every day. I don't need Mother's Day to get flowers or boots. I'm getting new boots this year. I always pick my own present, of course, but I needed new boots this
I
year.
like it.
Yeah. They're on sale, so I'm getting some new boots that I ordered online. So I haven't tried them on, but I'm hoping they're okay. So,
Yeah.
but I just love that every day for me feels like Mother's Day. Having them in my
Do you know,
world.
that's amazing. I
Mm.
know, because the kids have grown up, the kids had their issues. I have to say, raising boys when they're little are a handful. They are just full on, non-stop. So a mum of boys is a little bit different to a mum of girls. I've got girlfriends that have had girls, and the girls are amazing when they're little. I don't know what they're like when they're older, but I've heard some horror stories. But when the boys got older, it did get easier for me. However, they did go through a crazy stage between, I'd say, 18 and 20. Both of them had their little thing that they went through. But they have to go through that journey. I remember speaking to them both saying, at 16, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be perfect because life's not perfect, but you're going to have to own up to your mistakes. I'm not going to rescue you. If you make certain mistakes, that you've got to think about what you do. So I basically had that talk, and they understood that. And when they made their mistakes, which all kids do, I was there for them, but they had to get over that, get through that to become who they are today. And I'm going to put it out there. No, motherhood's not perfect. I've got so many amazing women friends who are mums. I even have some male friends who are being mothers because they don't have mothers, whether their wives have passed on or their wives have left. And step mums, foster mums, everyone, grandmas, everyone's got a part to play, and no one's ever going to be perfect. And you know me, I'm the quote lady. I'm going to bring something up because I think it's amazing. I posted it on my personal social media Insta feed, and it says, "Don't be so hard on yourself," because the mum in ET had no idea an alien was living in her house for days, and she didn't even notice. So, so she had no idea an alien was living in her house for days. I think as mums, we're so hard on ourselves, especially with social media. You see these amazing mums doing incredible things, and sometimes as working mums, when our kids were younger and we're working, we feel guilty that we're not always there for them. And then mums that stay at home feel guilty that they're not working.
Yeah.
I just think we need to ease up on ourselves a little bit and realize we're all doing the best job we can with what we've got.
I think society is a whole interesting, has an interesting role to play. And certainly I was one of those mums that I worked most of the time. I've probably only had about 2, maybe 3 years off with my kids, but I have worked full time most of the time and always felt guilty. Even now, my son's in year 11. I have no idea who his teachers are. I haven't been to, he's at a new school for year 11 and 12. I've been to the uniform shop to buy his uniforms, and that's it. Like, I have no concept of what goes on. And I went to his career information day or something. That was it. So I'm not one of these mums that can go to all the stuff at the school. I have a very busy job, and so I don't get that involved. But I've met his friends. I know what he's up to. I help him with his homework, you know, those kinds of things. So I think that we do put too much pressure on ourselves to be perfect. And I think my message and my takeaway is that actually, and what I learned from my mum, you know, is actually just love them. Just love them, and don't be too hard on them. You're right. They have to learn on their own. They will make their own mistakes, and you will be there to pick them up and to help them after they've made those mistakes. But the best thing that you can do is just love them. Don't try to make them conform. Don't try to make them be something that they're not created to be. Let them figure that out for themselves, and let them fall and pick them up like they did when they were toddlers. They would run and fall, and you'd pick them up. And you do that throughout their whole lives. My mum still comes to my rescue. I mean, she said to me today, you know, do you need some money? I'm like, Mum, I earn more than you. You shouldn't be giving me money anymore, you know, but she will still come to my rescue whenever I need it. And I think that that doesn't change, and we will always be there for our kids, and we shouldn't put as much pressure on ourselves as we do at times. And, you know, my encouragement, just hug your kids, love them, appreciate every day that you have with them, because life is short. And know that they love you even when they may not say it as much as they probably should.
Oh, exactly. And the one thing I thought that was spot on, Michelle. Give yourself a break if you're a mum. Give yourself a break. Accept that nothing's ever going to be perfect. Love your kids. Be there for them. Life's life. But one thing I want to say, especially for our older mums and everyone that has mums still in their lives, you know, take time to spend with those you love, because our lives are quite busy. And if I don't get a chance to see my mum, I'll ring her every other day just to check on her, just to make sure she's okay, because time's more precious than gold. It really, really is. Time is the best gift you could give anyone, you know, for your mum, kids, to your mum. That's the best gift. Mum said to me, I saw her this morning, and she said to me, don't buy me anything, you know, I said, don't worry, Mum, I'm not going to buy anything. And she goes, don't even get me a card. I said, it's too late. I've got you a card. But I said, but I am going to come and visit you. I'm going to do something for her that doesn't cost anything except time. And I haven't done this in ages. I'm actually going to make some fresh scones, and I'm going to bring it over with some beautiful fresh cream, lavender cream, and you know, nice beautiful jam. And what made me want to do that was I was reading this amazing article on the ABC, a scone recipe. It made the news a couple of days ago with just 3 ingredients. It sends this 92-year-old baker Muriel Holstad viral, and it's just 3 ingredients. It's flour, it's thickened cream, and it's lemonade. And
Wow.
she actually shows a tutorial on how to make the scones. And I remember I used to make scones like that. I thought, it's been years since I've made scones. So that's what I'm going to do for my mum. I'm going to make
Oh,
some
that's
scones and
nice.
go and have a cup of tea with her.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right about the time issue. My mum lives about 2.5 hours drive away from me. So I don't get to see her very often. She lives up at Lithgow. And so we don't get to see each other very often, and less these days, just because of the busyness of our lives and our kids' lives and whatever. So, but we do talk, and actually we email because, mum's at work and I'm at work. And so we'll often email each
Yes.
other through the day, or we'll text or we'll FaceTime and that sort of thing. So I talk to my mum quite regularly throughout the week. I do make a bit of an effort to call her or FaceTime her at least twice a week, especially now during COVID. But she's coming down tomorrow because of the current rules. 2 people can come and visit. So there's 4 of us. So we've decided that she's going to come down here and visit us. And I have ordered a cake. I'm not making a cake. Have I
Oh,
mentioned?
is that the one you posted?
Yes, I
Is that the one
posted
you
on my
posted?
Instagram as well. So I've
That
ordered
was nice.
a salted berry caramel cake from
Oh
Small
my goodness.
Cafe, which is
Oh,
gluten-free and clearly sugar-free and clearly no calories at all.
it's
And
that free.
I have ordered that cake, and I will pick that up tomorrow. And we also will have tea and cake.
Oh,
And
nice.
and we might go out for a walk around the lake, and just to spend some time together and chat. And my sister's coming over as well, so it'll be really nice just to catch up
Oh,
and
it
see her
sounds
after several
beautiful.
weeks. So yeah,
Yeah.
look forward to
Well,
it.
you know what? I'd probably say that's our time for today.
I think
And
because our mums are special, we
Michelle,
might have gone a little bit over because we needed to talk about our mums. So
oh yeah, mums are worth it. And
they are.
I honestly believe the takeaway for today is, I think there's 2 takeaways. Don't be so hard on yourself as a mum. And number 2, time's more precious than gold.
Mm.
Make time for those you love. And for everyone that's watching, listening, if you're a mum, grandma, foster mum, stepmom, dad mum, happy Mother's Day. You're doing a really good job.
Yes, happy Mother's Day to all the mums. Happy Mother's Day to you, Marina. Happy Mother's Day,
Yes,
Kathy. We're missing you.
Kathy.
And we hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful Mother's Day this weekend. And we look forward to catching you next week for more takeaway talk.
Yeah, great.